And gradually, I will welcome everybody. Kati will welcome everybody, and we will now kick off the campaign for EU37. I'm very happy, Mikhailo, that you are part of this initiative and you lead it actually, because you are a very famous journalist in Ukraine. I'm very happy that you interviewed me many times and that you participate now. This is very, very good.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Good afternoon, Mr. Hettinger. It's really a great honor to participate as a moderator in your event, an event which was organized by Vienna Goes Europe. So I'm sure that this event will be a very fruitful and controversial to the general aim of EU enlargement.
And you just recently has organized such a beautiful debate about Ukraine's EU future, which was so successful. And it's something we all want to say very loud, Slava Ukraine, and support Ukraine for victory, and also to join the European Union. That is our aim, and that we will achieve together. And I'm confident with Vienna Goes Europe, we can achieve that.
Mr. Fettinger, one more remark. I just want to stress that this video also will be published on the MediaInform TV channel, which covers approximately 4 million people who lives in Odessa region, so Odessa and suburbs of Odessa. And also it will be published on the Free Georgia TV channel, one of the leading TV channels in Georgia. Also, 3 people are supposed to join, one from the United States, Mr. Ren Charpentier, Pavel Chandra from Odessa, member of local parliament, and Nikolai Spiridonov, a prominent Ukrainian expert, is also supposed to join us.
They are all very welcome and we are very much looking forward. But first of all, let me say, we are in full solidarity with this beautiful hero city of Odessa, European Odessa. You belong to us and we stand in solidarity with you. And I hope that the situation will be calm there and you will be fully integrated in the European Union. And that's what we are fighting for here from Austria, from many other countries here in the European Union and in the enlargement countries. We want you to join the European Union and to win this terrible war.
Thank you very much.
I want now to welcome Ahmed. Hello, you are very welcome. Hello, from Kosovo.
Hello, I'm currently in Germany, but I'm from Kosovo.
Very good. You are welcome from this beautiful country. We just came back, actually, Katya and me. We are, this moment, we are coming back 1 hour ago from the Republic of Kosovo, also to promote EU membership. I see also Soran is here.
Yes, I'm here, yes.
You can switch on the video. It's nice to see you. And also Tassilo, we are very much welcoming everybody who is joining us at this debate. There's also Aaron coming here. Very good. Hello. Tassilo, where are you from? Soran, where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Skopje.
From Skopje, from amazing. Bravo, Macedonia. Yes. We want you in the European Union. That's amazing.
We'd like to join you.
You want to join the European Union?
Yes, definitely.
Very good, Soran. You are very welcome. That's really very good. Aaron, where are you from?
I'm from America.
Oh, bravo, America. Thanks a lot for your support. Yeah, you are so important for us, our ally from America. We are very grateful that you join us.
Thank you, sir.
Are you supporting Ukraine in European Union?
Yes, of course.
Very good, very good, excellent. That's very good. That's a great support, and we are looking forward. I see also Tatiana is joining. Very good. Welcome, Tatiana.
We can't hear you.
So everybody is gradually coming in. That's very good. We are looking forward.
Can you hear us, Tatiana?
No.
Yes.
Very good. Tatiana, please introduce yourself. You are from Ukraine and from America. That's perfect.
Yes, I'm originally from Ukraine, now professor at the University of Illinois, and currently in France for a 1-year sabbatical.
Very good, very good. And you are also for the Economist for Ukraine, very active in America to already work for the reconstruction of Ukraine.
Yes, among other things, yes.
You are very welcome in our debate here about the future of the European Union, of EU37. and of the campaign which we are kicking off actually today to bring everybody in the European Union. And that's my question. Tatiana, you're supporting European Union from America for Ukraine?
Yes, I think it's a great goal for Ukraine to aim for the EU to make available. You know, Ukraine should very much be part of the EU.
Very good. That's the direction we all have. I want to ask Zoran, you're in favor of the European Union? Macedonia wants to join?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. We are waiting to start the negotiations.
Very good. Ahmed, tell me, Kosovo wants to join the European Union?
Of course, as soon as possible.
Very good, very good. Now we are starting immediately already to kick off the campaign. Our president, Kati Schneeberger, from the Vienna Goes Europe Association, and also a very aspiring politician from the Green Party in Austria, from Vienna, is now making a presentation, and we are looking very much forward to your contribution. I was just to welcome also Pablo Chandra. Hello, Pablo. So we are getting more and more on this Zoom call to kick off and to coordinate the debate. Hello, Pablo. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you.
Where are you from? Just tell me.
From Ukraine, Odessa city.
Very good. Are you in favor of Ukraine joining the European Union?
Yes.
Very good. You are very welcome. We are all here very much in favor of Ukraine joining European Union. You are among friends and we are welcoming you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Kati Schneeberger. Please tell us about the campaign, your vision for a united Europe and how to organize everything.
A warm welcome to all of you. One moment, I will share something with you.
Kati was now already in Kosovo, in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Albania, in Macedonia to promote this campaign. She's just coming back from one of her trips from Macedonia and Kosovo. Now, Kati, the floor is yours.
Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I would like to present our concept for a Europe-wide event before the EU summit on Sunday, the 23rd of June. As many cities as possible should participate. Action should be organized in the countries that want to join, but also in EU member states. The diaspora or pro-European organizations can organize an event with other partners. This can be a rally or just a small activity in which the participants promote the EU enlargement. It can be an activity for their own country, or as planned is in Vienna, support for all accession candidates. Every city should post photos of the event or make video messages on all on social media, and should be used the hashtags enlarge.eu and, for example, Ukraine in EU or Albania in EU for the different countries they want to support. Here are some examples of the design that all cities can use and create their own for their own city. They can adapt. We organized a similar action a week before the Russian invasion in Ukraine. There was an activity in over 30 cities at the same time to show solidarity with the Ukraine. Here you can see the map, and it's planned to create such a map also for the activities on the 23rd of June.
The 19th of June.
Should take place at the 19th of June, and the summit is on 23rd. Yes. Okay. This is a short impression of.
That's excellent. That's excellent. That's a very important European initiative. And that's really very good that Kati Schneeberger is ready to lead this campaign and to promote the EU enlargement of all 9 countries together to be united in the European Union as fast as possible, obviously, and to make it very clear that we want to enlarge the European Union. Therefore, this hashtag enlarged EU is very important to use it in all campaigns. It can be in America, it can be in Europe, in the European Union, in the enlargement countries, in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, in, of course, Macedonia, North Macedonia, in Albania, in Montenegro, in Bosnia, in Serbia, all together. And this is very important that all the countries are joining.
Also in Kosovo.
Also in Kosovo, obviously, all 9 countries to be united, because our future is together in the European Union. And this we should communicate in a wide open space all over the European Union to put a little bit of pressure to our politicians, because some of them are reluctant, especially the French, I understand. And it would be good to have partners everywhere to make it clear that Europe must be united. And the answer to the Russian war of aggression is more European unity, more unity with America, and together we will win this war and this confrontation. Thanks a lot, Kati. I would like to welcome Alexander, who is the president of Austrian-Georgian Association. Please, Alexander. Very welcome.
Hello, Günther. Nice for the invitation.
Thanks a lot. Georgia is very welcome also in this initiative, and we will promote this also to have Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine especially to start the travel and the trip to Europe, the long journey. This is very important, and I hope that every country in Europe will continue to cooperate. Please, Mikhailo, maybe from your side, how is the situation in Ukraine today, and what's the situation? I hear it's very heavy fighting, and of course we are in full solidarity. Can you describe the situation? How do the people envisage the campaign to join the European Union now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Fettinger. Again, it's a great honor to participate in the moderation of the discussion and to have this event on my TV channel in Odessa. Basically, the station in Odessa, fortunately, is relatively calm, even though Russians occupied the Kherson region, but I'm sure that the Ukrainian army is gaining more strength each day due to the valuable help which our American partners provide to us. So soon, I'm sure that Ukrainian army will be able to fight back our territories which were occupied and invaded by Russian forces. Obviously, according to the last polls which were conducted in Odessa, majority of the Odessa residents, they in favor of European integration. So more than 70% of Odessa residents, they in favor of European integration, and about 55% in favor of the integration to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And these figures shows that now there is a great consent among all Ukrainians, especially after Russia launched its invasion. There is a consent that Ukraine has to move closer to European Union and to become a member of European Union. So this is a general consent among all regions in Ukraine. So it means that we don't have any other point of view rather than to join the European Union, and this is very good.
That's very good. Thanks a lot, Mikhailo. That we all support together that Ukraine joins. Please.
But Mr. Fettinger, just to let's say to launch the discussion, I think that it will be very interesting for us to discuss an offer which were made by Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of United Kingdom, who actually offered Ukraine to create, let's say, a separate union, which will be joined by Poland, the Baltic countries, and presumably Turkey. And this union, according to Boris Johnson's plan, has to, let's say, in some way substitute the European Union, and some way to provide another opportunities for European Union. So for Ukraine, let's say, direction towards integration to European Union is a major direction, and we strictly follow this direction. Obviously, it is incorporated in our constitution, but still for Ukraine, it will be very important to receive a sign of solidarity from European Union by granting us the candidate for obtaining membership status in the late June. But still, I would like to discuss with you, and I think that it will be nice if all the participants will say their opinion regarding these proposals, which was just made by Boris Johnson.
Thanks a lot, Mikhailo. We will discuss this because there are several proposals now in the room how to really join the European Union. But most important is that now our initiative makes it very clear that there is public will in Ukraine to join the European Union, and we all in Europe, we want to support and we want that this is happening and that Ukraine joins the European Union. That is the most important. In June, there is the summit, and this is the decision which will be taken also with Moldova, also with Georgia. These are the flags. I have them all here in solidarity, because in this next 3 weeks, we have to push for that topic, for these decisions to be taken. First of all, I would like to make a short tour for the countries which for many years are already very active. And first of all, Macedonia. Can you describe a bit the situation? How is it in Macedonia? Do you want to join the European Union? Are you in favor of Ukraine? What's the situation, Soran? Please, go ahead.
Yes, we want to join the European Union, and we are in favor of Ukraine and all the countries to join the European Union that are currently waiting. We have for some time now a candidate status for EU, but we can't start negotiation due to different obstacles. But hopefully we will overcome the obstacles and we will start the negotiations as soon as possible. And I hope that they will start after the summit in June.
Thanks a lot, Soran. We are absolutely in favor that the negotiations are starting, and this should happen now. This is so important at the moment that we really have a clear answer to the Russian war. This means unity, this means faster enlargement. And of course, Macedonia, North Macedonia has already NATO membership achieved, is a EU candidate country a long time, since 2005. It's now time to move on towards full membership very fast. Welcome, Macedonia. We are very much looking forward. Maybe Ahmed, you want to, thanks a lot. Maybe Ahmed, you want to talk about Kosovo and about the situation there. Especially Kati has now started a campaign for visa liberalization. That's very important campaign. Yeah. Maybe you can also sign and share this important Vienna Goes Europe campaign to help our friends in Kosovo. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thanks for inviting me. I have already signed the signature of the change for the Kosovo liberalization of visas. And I have shared today multiple times that thing. So I just checked the situation of the signatures. It has almost achieved 7,000 signatures. So it's moving forward. Kosovo is waiting to get the candidate status for EU, and also to progress faster to EU membership because of current situation in Ukraine. And we fully support Ukraine joining to EU.
Very good. Welcome, Kosovo. We are very much looking forward as well. We had a wonderful trip now there, and this is really very important for us to have also visa liberalization and also recognition. And also, let's never forget, this was the last time NATO went to military action to liberate Kosovo. And many of us, anyhow, I think I can say it like this, we would like to see very much military support for Ukraine, much stronger, because we have helped our friend in Kosovo. We should help our friends in Ukraine and have a no-fly zone over Ukraine in order to stop the Russian aggression also from the air, because this is what Ukraine needs so urgently. It's a military cover from the air, from NATO, and we did it for Kosovo. We should do it for Ukraine as well. Thanks for Kosovo now. And now I would like to give to Georgia. Alexander, tell me, are the Georgians in favor of the European Union? Does Georgia want to join the European Union?
For my part, I can say Georgia enjoyed to go to the Union. But the most politics is now to help the Ukrainian people. Ukraine and Georgia are friends all the time. And the politics is what they have the same problem with Russia. They also want to the NATO. But I think the most of the time want to go to the EU.
Very good, and they are very welcome. Also, Georgia is so well prepared already. Regulatory alignment is so progressed, and the people are so much in favor of EU. And we really have to welcome Georgia now very fast at the EU summit on the 23rd of June. This is really so important. Thanks a lot, Georgia. And now I would like to also welcome maybe Tatiana, you want to say something from the American perspective? Or maybe Aaron?
I would prefer to just listen. You know, I'm very supportive, but I want people from their respective countries to have more of a chance to speak. So I will just listen.
Very good. The economists, they're already preparing a major master plan. Actually, it's a very important initiative which Tatiana is doing, a major master plan where the leading American professors of economy are helping already from the drafting how Ukraine can be reconstructed, integrated, developed. And this is very important initiative. Thanks a lot for that. Aaron, maybe your perspective from the American side, because you are so keen now to support Ukraine and all, of course, Kosovo, Bosnia. Without America, there would be so much terrible things happening in Eastern Europe, and you are really helping, securing, and helping so much, and we can be just very grateful for your support. Aaron, maybe your perspective.
I think the actions on the battlefield will determine a lot of, I think just the outcome of really anything. I don't think that there will really be any negotiating or between Zelensky and Putin. And I think, so I do think that airspace is, I am in favor of it. I wasn't at first, but I think that more and more as the war goes on, just doesn't look like it's going to end. So I think before we really talk about EU integration, which I'm completely in favor of, I think that we have to wait and see how things play out on the battlefield.
Absolutely, Aaron, you are 100% correct. Of course, the war must be won first, and we have to support Ukraine much more. America is doing tremendous things, has already budgeted $54 billion US. That's an enormous amount of money, and it's really American generosity wins now, and it's really very important. Thanks a lot. Also, Europe has done a lot, but we could do more in the coming weeks, and we will do. Tomorrow, by the way, there is the EU summit. 13th of May is the next EU summit where the heads of states and leaders will come together. To give you an outline, it's the 6th sanction package which is on the agenda. That means the big issue, if there will be an embargo for oil. We have the problem with Orban from Hungary. He is very much connected financially with Mr. Putin, and he is blocking this. Yeah? And we have a really serious problem with him. I have called the Ukrainians already very often, and I do this again. You should cut physically the pipeline to Hungary to squeeze Orban and not to let him profit from the business. It's much better to put this initiative from the Ukrainian side, because Orban is unfortunately more with Russia than with Europe, and that's a big crisis for us. But tomorrow at the summit, there will be very good decisions, I'm confident. And then we have another 23 days of action and activity to promote EU enlargement and also to support tougher sanctions, because I'm also in favor of gas sanctions. We should stop to buy anything from Russia, anything. And of course, also oil, of course, also gas. And we should be fast, we should be decisive, because our Ukrainian friends are dying and they're fighting like heroes, but we are sending money to Russia. This is absolutely crazy. And so we have to make an absolute embargo of all trade with Russia. And we have to do that very soon. And I hope the next 6 weeks we'll see a lot of American pressure on European decision makers that we achieve this, because I've started all the enlargement phases of the European Union, by the way, and each single enlargement since the start of the European Union in 1950 and 57 and 73 and 86 and 81 and 2004 and 2013 and 7. Every time it was America who has supported us in enlargement. And you have always dealt with the French, because the French have always been against enlargement. I don't know exactly why, I have some suspicion, but this is a really big problem and we have to address it. And only America can systematically address the French challenge, because they have a very bizarre view, unfortunately, in Paris of enlargement. And that's also for the second debate, we will discuss about it, because I'm not so in favor of some secondary membership or some new European political community, which Mr. Macron has proposed, because we don't need a big parking space for Ukraine and for Moldova and for Kosovo and for Serbia and for Bosnia. We need equality of members in the political union, which we have. And of course, this is the most important plan ahead, and that's the plan. So I want to welcome also maybe, yeah, please, who is the next?
EU and NATO expansion is especially important now. And I think that also we have to strengthen our ties with China.
Most important, our ties with America. This is the most important. Please, who wants to say something? Please, Mikhailo,
yeah? Mr. Fechlinger, let me ask you a question, because you just asked questions to the participants. Now I would like to ask you a question. You know, I will try to provide you, let's say, a Ukrainian perspective in some way. Also, Austrian perspective, because I used to do my master degree in University of Vienna for 2 years, so I know
very
Austria
good. You're a real friend of Austria. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I know each corner in Vienna. So, Mr. Fechlinger, it seems from Ukraine that there is, let's say, not really conflict, but some, let's say, different views on the perspective of EU development between Eastern European states and Western European states. And it seems from Ukraine that Western European states, especially Germany and France, they pursue their own agenda, and they don't want to open the doors to allow Ukraine and Balkan countries to enter European Union. And they usually put on the table different questions like corruptions, etc., etc. We know that corruption exists everywhere. Yes. So it is matter of attitude. So it seems to us that France and Germany, they simply afraid of Ukraine uniting with Poland, with Baltic states and Balkan states. So according to Treaty of Functioning European Union, they will have together the blocking minority to block the decisions of the Council of European Union. So Germany and France will have to encounter the position of, let's say, Eastern European states while they're making their decision. And it seems to us that Germany and France, they are afraid of, let's say, they're afraid of excessive influence of the United States on the European continent. So basically, I think that there has to be a very straight, a very fair conversation between Eastern European states and Western European states regarding the future of the European Union. And this will be the key for Ukraine, for Georgia, Moldova, and Balkan states to join the European Union. We don't want in Ukraine to have the same story as it used to be with NATO when we were knocking the door. At the same time, Putin approached us, invaded several our territories, and we still haven't received explicit answer regarding European Union integration and regarding membership in NATO.
Absolutely. It's very important that you become a full member in the political community, in the political union, in the European Union. Don't go in any other kind of directions. Yeah? The European Union for Ukraine, for Macedonia, for Albania, for all countries, because here we have a union of equality. Every member state has the right to vote, to veto, to be a powerful stakeholder. That's also one of the reasons why some countries are a little bit hesitant to enlarge, because then they have to take a country like Montenegro or Ukraine or Serbia or Macedonia very seriously. And they are very seriously. And that's the idea of our founding fathers of the European Union, that we take all the countries and their nations and their people very seriously, and that we build a union based on the copy of the United States. Because Mr. Jean Monnet, he is the father of Europe. and he has created the European Union from the beginning in the light of building a new United States of Europe here in our continent, in the copy of the success of the United States of America. And this is the future together to build this Europe.
And
to
I'm
live
sure
in his
that
vision.
Vienna Goes Europe will. I'm sure that the organization Vienna Goes Europe will repeat, let's say, the nice fairy story of the Action Committee for Uniting Europe, which was chaired by Jean Monnet when he resigned from the position of the head of High Authority of European Council Communities. So I think this NGO, Vienna Goes Europe, has a very unique position by bridging different capitals in the goal to unite the whole European continent.
And that's a big vision to follow. That's big footsteps. But the idea is that we build a hub and a network of friends in all countries of enlargement, with our American friends, with our Ukrainian friends from Kosovo, Albania, Macedonia, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia, and all countries in the European Union, also with the United Kingdom, to work together and then to build a much stronger Europe out of this crisis, the war, and the challenge from Russia. Because every time the European Union has enlarged, it was as a response to a war, which actually was always a Soviet or Russian war. Because it was like this, that we created European Union as a response to the Korean War, to the Suez War, and to the Vietnam War, to the Bosnian War, and to the Georgian War, and all these crises which are coming from the Soviet Union or from Russia now. And we have the only one option to be more united, because if we are split up in many small countries, then of course the Kremlin can easily go to Budapest and say, Mr. Orban, I have a deal for you. Here is very cheap gas, and here is a lot of money for you in Switzerland. And then you get basically this divided situation. And this we have to avoid. We also need to buy energy united. It's very important. The common gas market must be with one purchaser, the European Union, not the single countries and all these kind of divisions. That's the problem. We are very divided Europe, one gigantic Russia next to us. Yeah? So we must be more united, and we need American support for this one. And we need also full membership of our friends in Ukraine in the European Union. Also then to win the votes when it comes for more unity. This is also so important. And that's why we want to be a EU from now 27. We want to go up to 37 countries. That means 9 new countries. And also hopefully to be one day so attractive that the United Kingdom says, by the way, we want to come back to this beautiful European Union, which is a union of responsibility, able to defend Europe together with the partners from NATO. Because this is our sister organization from the EU. It's NATO is like sisters. We are not a competition. We are sisters, partners, friends, and the EU should develop as a pillar of NATO in Europe. This is the better way forward. And the French want to build the EU against NATO, against America. And that's a big strategic mistake as we see today, because only together we can win against the Russian challenger or enemy. Please.
Mr. Pfefflinger, I would like to ask a question our colleague Tatiana, which will be purely economic question, if you don't mind. So right now, obviously, all initiatives, they are about economy. And I think that Ukraine has many things which we can put on the table, which might be interesting for European Union. Not only the fact that Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, and it has a population of 40 million people and very creative population, but we also have gas, oil, different minerals, etc., etc. So my question to, and obviously IT technologies. So my question for Tatiana will be the following: why and how actually the integration of Ukraine to European Union can benefit European Union economically? Why, from economic perspective, European Union needs Ukraine?
Well, so I think the issues that you've mentioned, or not the issues, but the advantages that you've mentioned are definitely important advantages of Ukraine joining the European Union. And you know, I think one issue with enlarging the European Union has been like this a bit of xenophobia, you know, honestly, right? This is one reason why the UK left. Switzerland almost passed a referendum restricting freedom of movement. And I think that is probably something that the EU, without saying it out loud, that is one barrier to having Ukraine join, because the labor that Ukraine can provide to the European Union is very valuable. The population is very educated. You know, wages in the Ukraine are fairly low. And I think from some people in the EU, this brings up fear of you know, immigration and so on, but it can be like a very good thing for the European Union to enable it to better take advantage of the human capital that Ukrainians have to offer, you know, at advantageous rates. So from an economic standpoint, I think it can be very good for the European Union to have more resources integrated into the economy, you know, natural resources as well as human capital.
Thank you, Tatiana.
That's very important contribution that Ukraine can make to the European Union. I think it will be absolutely fantastic already, since we have concluded the important free trade agreement, the so-called DCFTA in 2016, which was the contentious point of the Euromaidan. But since then, the trade integration of Ukraine has been significantly higher towards the European Union, to the big benefit of Ukraine and of the European Union. It was fantastic. And now when the war started, we had already a lot of issues with supplies in the automotive industry and in the agriculture food industry, because of the high level of integration of Ukraine in the European value chain of especially the agriculture sector and the automotive sector and the metal sector. And that was a really big success. And it's, by the way, one of the reasons why Putin started this war and escalated it in 2022, because he saw how successful European Ukraine is integrating economically already, and he wanted to destroy this success. That's the tragedy of the year. But Ukraine is very welcome. I see Ahmed, please, one question.
Okay, so initially during the war in Ukraine, I saw so many videos from people from China, and what they said that the mediums have published texts that contained very bad messages, like we should get Ukrainian women to have them as sex toys.
It's terrible crimes which are happening. Terrible crimes.
But in China, not in Ukraine.
It's even China is very deeply problematic country.
For that reason, it would be very good that China had some consequences about it.
It's a big question, you know, if we should be very tough on China or try to break China away from the Russian alliance. That's an open question. It's something for a different debate, maybe. But nevertheless, if they,
Mr.
Please.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Feckinger. Finish, please.
Carlo.
Yeah.
Not just this big debate.
Yeah, Mr. Feckinger. Just if we're talking about China, I would like to ask Mr. Charpentier, because he has a unique experience. He has lived in Ukraine for several years and in China for 10 years. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask him from his own experience. Mr. Charpentier, we know that China is quite traditional and quite powerful state, and obviously to understand Chinese wall, Chinese system, it really takes time. So, and obviously, I think that dictator Putin, actually, before he started his invasion into Ukraine and into Georgia, he secured the neutrality from China. So it seems to me that we have to try to bring China to the table, so at least not to allow China to be an ally of Putin. And I think that President Biden's administration right now is doing everything in order to bring China closer, let's say, to Western allies in this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. So what can you recommend from your own perspectives? How we can, let's say, effectively work with China? I'm not talking about Ukraine in particular. I'm just talking generally about, let's say, European continent, because China is also a member of Security Council.
Please, Aaron, go ahead.
I think that it's very important for the EU and for my country to be engaged with China. And I think that the way things are going now between America and China is really it's really holding. I think that first of all we need to have better relations with China, America, and Europe. And the way to go about that is to show friendship towards China. And I think that the media in America is, I really hate to use the word, and I don't use words loosely, but a lot of it's propaganda towards China, because the reality that I experienced in China, the reality that my friends experienced in China, is just not the same thing. That for one, there aren't a lot of I don't think that there's a humanitarian crisis in China either. And I think that there are also a lot of freedoms in China that in some ways there are there's more freedom of speech and more freedom in China than there is in Europe and in my own country. And I just think that to discredit China the way that Europe and America does, I think that it just makes it more difficult for us to work with China. China is Chinese people and the Chinese government, they're not going to assist us in any way with this crisis if we keep backing them into a corner, which we're doing. And we just keep attacking them. I mean, we're still attacking them as we speak on a lot of issues, humanitarian issues, this issue, that issue. And there really aren't any humanitarian issues that I think that my country is really trying to discredit China because we want to maintain global supremacy, and we want to show that China isn't a country with values, or a country that can lead the world. And I think we should be very competitive. And of course, I want my country to lead. There's no doubt about that. But I think we need to just take a different approach, and with China, with engaging with China, and we need to be very competitive. But to discredit China and to do those kinds of things, to make the Chinese government and the Chinese people lose face is absolutely the worst thing you can do. You can, the EU and America, we can criticize each other, but in China, Chinese people are very sensitive towards criticism. And I'm not saying that you can't criticize China, but you can't create a propaganda machine that just attacks China just so that we can maintain global supremacy. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to have much closer ties with China, because if China falls into the Russian orbit, then that'll be a really dangerous situation. And
Aaron, I completely agree with you, because actually we won the Cold War as well in a coalition with China. After 1918, when China opened up to the West, we integrated China in the world economy from 1918 onwards, the Americans actually, and this was one of the vital reasons why the Soviet Union fell apart. And we should always see that the Russians are the ones with the tanks in Ukraine, waging war in Georgia, in Ukraine, in Syria, against Chechnya, and which have such a very powerful and negative influence against us in America and in Europe with political influence. So the real enemy is Russia.
China is not a military threat, and China will not attack Taiwan. China never attacked Hong Kong. China's going to wait, and it's going to integrate Taiwan economically, and I believe that it will finally absorb Taiwan economically, politically, and I believe that China has a plan. They have the date that they're going to really start implementing certain policies that can put that into place. See, that's the difference between America and China and Europe, is that China has a plan for everything. They have a timetable, and everything is really well thought out, and they just they're going to try to bring that into fruition.
Yes, that's absolutely true. The real enemy is Russia. We see that in the escalation in 2022, but already the war is raging since 8 years. The enemy is Russia. We have to win against Russia under Putin, and we have to work with different allies to win this. But most important, what is very important one moment is also to make an alliance with all countries of Southeastern Europe. And Ukraine has an important role here to play, and especially the city of Odessa has an important role, because you're so close to Romania, to Bulgaria, but also to the Western Balkans. So it's very important that the Americans and also the Europeans together, they give Ukraine a very big role in the future of Europe in the future, and to make also a leader of the whole group of enlargement, and to bring together a more stronger Europe united of 37 countries. And here Odessa could be, for example, the place to meet, to organize, to have an Odessa European Forum, and to really very strongly work together for the success of Odessa in Europe, in the EU, and also with all friends together. That would be perfect to be united.
Mr. Fechtinger, I would like to ask a question. Our colleague from Macedonia, if it's possible. This question will be about today's statement, which was made by Ministry of International Affairs of Lithuania. Maybe colleagues, you heard this statement where Minister for International Affairs he actually stood against all talks by some European leaders, and Henry Kissinger, the former State Secretary of the United States, who called actually to understand Putin, and who called Ukraine to sacrifice part of its territory in order to keep Putin's face. Obviously, President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, and the whole Ukrainian society stand against this, because Ukraine won't sacrifice even a part of our territory. But still, it's very dangerous that some European states, Western European states and United States, they offer such deals, or at least, let's say, on expert level, and on, let's say, a political level. Yeah. So is it really dangerous for European unity? Because European unity is based on values. And one of the value is actually the respect of the territorial integrity of each member state. So my question will be for our colleague in Macedonia. Do some Western leaders underpin European unity by asking Ukraine to sacrifice part of its territory to make dictator Putin pleased? What do you think about this? Which danger, let's say, is hidden here for European unity, not only for Ukraine?
It's a very big danger. I'm not sure that Soran maybe dropped out, but let me answer this question, because it's very wrong to think about face-saving Putin, because that's really very wrong. He has had many chances in Minsk 1, Minsk 2. In 8 years of war already, he had many chances if there would have been a will for peace or for a settlement. But he has decided to go for military war in 2022 again. So face saving, why? I cannot understand this argument. It's a part of appeasement policy of pleasing dictators, like they had done it with Hitler, and it led to another war, to an even terrible Second World War. So what we should do, and what we should have done already in the times after Minsk II, we should have clearly integrated Ukraine into NATO, built on the Western German model of 1955, when there was clarity in Western Germany joins NATO, 55, and so there was no war, because America and Germany and the whole NATO allies have secured the border with the Eastern occupied Germany. And if we did the same in 2016, 17, 18, as I have said many times, to integrate Ukraine in NATO, even as a divided country, which is very unfortunately, but we could have secured the contact line with our NATO forces, and we could have secured the isthmus to Crimea with our NATO forces, and there would be no war in 2022 if Ukraine would have been taken on that model into the NATO and as well the European Union. So our very bad policy of face-saving Putin has given him the opportunity to make this terrible war, which is so costly in human lives and which is so costly in money as well. And so we have made many mistakes. And if we now face save Putin, it will just encourage him to make a more war later, and it will be complete disaster, and we should never do that.
No, I agree. We can't appease Putin. I think that in his mind, might is right. And again, I'm a man of peace. By the way, I'm a descendant of Charles I of Austria. He's my 12th cousin. So, for me,
we are now no longer a monarchy, but it's nice to meet you.
And I normally don't share. I normally don't share my personal life, but for the first time, I decided to do it. But so anyway, I believe in peace, but I believe that sometimes we have to fight for peace, and this is a good. This is we're in a crisis that there's really no way out but for Ukraine to win this battle, and I think Zelensky, we all know what happened when Charles I gave up land, right?
It's absolutely true.
So I think
I mentioned already that you, please.
I think the question is well, Charles I was, some thought was benevolent. Some believed that he was just a poor leader, right? And we know that, say, Zelensky is neither of the two, right? And we know that he's not going to give any territory away. And I think that if he does that, Putin will just take advantage of that, and if there is some kind of settlement, he may attack Ukraine again. Exactly. So again, I believe that Ukraine needs to fight this war and win the war, because Putin won't negotiate. He's not going to give up any land.
Absolutely. Let's
Ukraine isn't going to budge either. So.
Exactly. We are like sisters, NATO and EU. I have both flags here in the background. Let's never forget NATO and EU. We are like sisters, and it's also necessary Ukraine to join NATO, because it's the only way for peace. The only reason we have peace is NATO.
And let me add this. I'm digressing a bit, but before we talked about Henry Kissinger talking about how Ukraine might have to give up land. Before, during a negotiation, but we have to, he's a retired diplomat, right? Most American politicians right now, including Biden, want what the Ukrainian people want and support the Ukrainian people and what they want to do. And unlike, say, France, right?
I understand. Yeah.
Mr.
No.
Fecklinger,
Yeah, please, Mikhailo.
if you don't mind, I would like to ask Mr. Chandra, who is the member of Odessa local city hall, and actually he's the member of European Solidarity, the party of the former president, the fifth president of Ukraine, Mr. Petro Poroshenko, regarding the attitude of their party and Mr. Chandra in particular about the situation which now we have with some of our European Union partners. I'm just talking about France and Germany. So, Mr. Chandra, what is an attitude of your party? Do you expect the European Union to grant us a candidate status in the end of the June?
Yes, dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to express sincere gratitude to host for inviting me today to join this conference, and special appraisals should belong to the NGO Vienna Goes Europe for active position in regard to Russian invasion into Ukraine, and especially for active promotion of the Ukrainian choice to join the European Union in the short-term perspective. But some people feel very skeptical about such possibility. I think that such conference like this is a core part of the civil society action. And it's also an essential part of the European discourse. Today, unfortunately, the situation on the European continent has become very dangerous. Here in Ukraine, we see divergent positions of the European Union members regarding future of Ukraine. We feel strong support from Poland and Baltic states, but at the same time, we're not satisfied with the French and German attempt to sacrifice Ukrainian interests in order to save Putin's face. What it means? It means to give up part of our territory if we want to stop the war. So Ukraine made this mistake 8 years ago, and as we remember, we were forced to enter Minsk negotiations, which eventually resulted in the new wave of aggression, what we see today. So we will not repeat the same mistake again. And concerning our partners, why are they so sensitive about Putin? I think that partially they're afraid of the dictator. In some point, yes. But the main reason is that there is no coherent European interests. So, as other colleagues said, there is a strange situation between Western and Eastern states in the European Union. So Western European states still are very hostile to the Eastern European states. And they don't want Ukraine to defeat Russia and enter the European Union. Ukraine is a big country, and together with Poland, Slovakia, Baltic and Balkan states can change the agenda of the EU development. So that's why during the last 30 years, we have not heard explicit answer of the European Union future for Ukraine. Obviously, you won't hear such views on Ukraine from the French and German officials. They will continue to support Ukraine publicly, but they will still continue business with Russia behind the closed doors. So, dear colleagues, it's a high time for us to force the European officials to return to the politics of principles rather than pursuing the policy of selfish interests. Thank you for the attention.
It seems like they're almost betraying the values of the EU, right?
That was a very good statement.
Yes. It's a strange situation in the EU, from my point of view, because principles is the main thing on which EU was based. And when we see it, some leaders of some countries in the European Union, I don't see this situation. And it's
absolutely true, you're correct. But I would like to make it a bit more complicated, the picture actually, because in Germany there are political parties which are very much in favor of Ukraine. This is, for example, the Green Party, they in the government, and also the Liberal Party is quite good in that respect, and also to send more weapons and to be very active. The problem is more with the Social Democrats. The Social Democrats who are now full of Scholz, yeah, they have a traditional policy of buying energy from Russia in order to have good economic relations and supposedly then to have peace. Yeah? But it was never peace, the result. The Russians took the money and they waged war in Africa and Asia all the time during the Cold War and were terrible enemies of America in many, many countries of the world with the money the Germans have sent them. So that policy was always a big mistake. And now again, if we would have already in Minsk II confronted Putin very strictly and given kind of no energy policy and no buying anymore because he has invaded Crimea and Donbass, then he would have 6 years less of income to prepare his war. It would have been the much better policy to cut the energy off and the energy purchases. But we didn't do it. We were buying a lot of energy, and he had many, many hundreds of billions of money to buy tanks and to buy rockets. And now we have this big, big war. It's an absolute wrong policy. And it's the Social Democrats very much to blame for that. And we should be also very clear to communicate it to the political parties, not to the countries, because many countries in Europe, which are the people are very positive to Ukraine, in Germany, for example, in Austria. And there's a lot of solidarity and help for the Ukrainians when they come as refugees, and also for Ukraine in the EU. The support in the opinion poll is now very high. But it's some of the political parties, especially the left and the very right, yeah, which have this problem, and we have to name him, to shame him. And that's also why Mr. Scholz is a very big problem in that respect, because he comes from this tradition of anti-Americanism and soft understanding of Soviet policy and Soviet appeasement and of Russian appeasement. And he is now the chancellor because of this coalition result in the last September, which I'm sure Mr. Putin had also very big support on that one. And we have this crisis with Germany for that reason.
Mr. Feckinger, let me ask a question to our colleague, Mr. Ahmed from Kosovo, regarding the situation in Kosovo, which might be very interesting even for me as a citizen of Ukraine. So one of the reasons which basically the critics of enlargement they put on the table is the fact that our elites, they are not ready to join the European Union. Okay, popularity, I mean, people in general, they're in favor of the European Union, but people are not enough. The question is about political elite. They're not ready to play according to EU rules, let's say, yeah? I'm not talking about formal rules. I'm talking about, let's say, informal ways of, let's say, the code of principles of the policy is different. So, Mr. Ahmed, I would like to ask your opinion regarding, let's say, the political elite of your state. Your state is relatively new, and you now obviously have a political elite, and obviously, you know, there are some problems in your country as well as in Ukraine, if you're talking about the quality of political elite from the point of corruption, etc. So what do you think? Is it really an obstacle for our country? Is it really an obstacle for our countries to join the European Union? The fact that our political elites still have to teach how to act according to Western standards, or the fact that we will join the European Union can boost the quality of our national political elites and their, let's say, kind of statecraft. What do you think?
Ahmed, please.
Thanks for inviting me. So initially, I supported the current political party to win this election. So we changed totally the political scene in Kosovo. And on last days, we had some arrests of corrupted people in Kosovo. And also we have some journalists from Ukraine in Kosovo. So we welcome people from Ukraine to Kosovo to stay there, because in Kosovo there is no war currently, thanks to NATO. So it is good to be members of NATO together.
The good thing in Kosovo, for example, there was a lot of corruption after the war in the beginning. Yeah. But what happened now, there was a movement, which is like a green center left-wing movement. It's called Vete Vendosia. Yes. And the prime minister since 2 years is now very active, and he has cleaned up the government very good. And all the businesses and all the people say the corruption has significantly decreased. So this is really a big achievement, and it is a sign that also in a complicated country with a complicated history of governance, you can have a major progress if there is the public will to clean up the government, and then you find the right politicians, and then you clean it up with modern help of digital government. Like Ukraine has made a lot of progress actually with the digitalization of the government structures, and the reputation which everybody has in Western Europe, in Paris, that Ukraine and Kosovo are very corrupt. I can say that's actually not true, because the reality is that the digitalization and the efforts in the last years has tremendously improved the transparency of the Kosovo and of the Ukraine government. And the reality is much better than the reputation. And we have to tell this story to the politicians of Western Europe, because there is major progress thanks to digitalization and new transparency. And that's really very good. Congratulations to Kosovo and to Ukraine, actually, in that levels of land register of people, everything on the handy, on the telephone, the smartphone, the administration. This is really tremendous progress.
Yeah, let me speak. I worked a lot to bring these people to the government, because I knew that they will be better for Kosovo citizens.
Thanks a lot, Ahmed, for your effort.
Yeah, and for this, Kosovo reputation increases.
Very good. Mikhailo, wanted to ask?
Mr. Feklinger, I would like to ask a question of our colleague, Mr. Tassilo. Mr. Tassilo, yeah, I think you hear us here. So just please give a sign to hear us, yeah? Yeah, okay, fine. Mr. Tassilo, I reckon 6 months ago, before actually Russia launched another aggression or another act of aggression towards Ukraine, there was an article published by our ministry, Mr. Dmitry Kuleba, who published his article in a very famous, well-established journal, Foreign Affairs, where he urged the West to reject the concept of post-Soviet area as a part of a Russian sphere of influence, and he urged this to do 6 months prior to this big war. So, what do you think about this concept? Can we say for sure, after Russia launched this, let's say, large-scale invasion, that the European Union is ready to reject this let's say, post-Soviet area concept, and is ready to consider Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia actually as a part of a European sphere of interest rather than Russian sphere of interest? Please.
You're welcome. Hi.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you. I think it's the problem is the reality what Russia wants, and I think we have to build a strong will over the entire Europe to build now a new constitution that will be the answer to Putin. That will be that. We must want this a new constitution, and there is not, I think, the will in the entire European Union to change contract of the European Union. There's a lot of different the North European, like for example Sweden or Poland. They don't want to have to change with the majorities, to change the treaties. And I think that the answer to all this of the behavior of Russia must be another answer of Europe. But it will be very complicated at the moment. And we need a convent, like Macron said, but we need, it's my point of view and the point of view of my colleagues, we need also at the end, at the beginning, a process, an open process about the constitution of Europe, and then at the end, referenda all over Europe, that really the will of the people say yes with a 75 majority of the states, also like to compare with Switzerland, majority of the population and majority of the states. And that will be, I think, the strongest answer to stop Russia now, because the project of Russia now is Novorossiya, you know, this project. And I think that the really answer is a strong new constitution of Europe. And then will be the question for me is with different level memberships or not. That's a very difficult question.
Mr. Siddle, Mr. Siddle, I beg your pardon. So did I understand you in a correct way? So you really think that now it's a time for, let's say, European Union to return back to idea to, let's say, reestablish itself and to adopt the constitution, which actually was suspended 20 years ago. And I just, want to remind us that it was suspended. The constitution was suspended because basically of several reasons. First reason, because of the institutions. Member states, they were afraid of, let's say, extremely powerful institutions, and they were afraid of embodying the principle of primacy European Union law into the text of the treaty. And actually still the primacy of European Union law is not regulated by the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union or Treaty on the European Union. It is actually regulated by the decision of Court of Justice of European Union from the middle of 60s. So are you sure that European Union, let's say, is now ready to come back to the talks for establishing constitution? Won't we actually undermine European Union as a whole if we now, let's say, have this proposal on the table to discuss again the text of constitution? We remember how many problems were with Lisbon Treaty after the constitutional treaty failed.
Excuse me, it's difficult to answer your question, but I think that are very good questions. And I know also your situation is very, very bad, and maybe it seems a little bit abstract to answer in your situation. There's war, I know, and but I think we need also, maybe it's not the point of view of Mr. Gunther feeling, but maybe an avant-garde, a European avant-garde. That's more, and to do more integration, because I know there are parts like Poland and I think Sweden doesn't want more integration. So we have to build more integration with the people of Europe, the part of Europe who wants to have more integration, and for that we have to have more discussions, more broadcasts, more radio, etc. And also what the people, the European people, sovereign wants really in Europe, because I think the major problem is that the sovereigns of Europe, they are not included in the process. So I know it's a very difficult process, but for a lot of people, and you know this from Austria, the European Union is very far away for a lot of people. They live in a different world. For them, it's European Union is not so near, but maybe it will change now with the war in Ukraine. And yeah, and I know also I'm working for also direct democracy in Europe, and I know that there's a lot of change in Ukraine in the last years, and that's maybe they will bring a lot of things, new things to Europe, because they know now the values of Europe, because now we are to, I don't know what's the English term, to bequem. You can maybe
too lazy.
Too lazy, yeah. Yeah, the last years, because everything for us is normal, state of the art.
Thank you, Mr. Fecklinger. I would like to ask you a question regarding, let's say, multi-speed Europe or two-speed Europe, the concept which was originally proposed by President of the European Commission, Mr. Jacques Delors, back in the middle of the 80s. We know that there is actually an instrument inside the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union which stipulates the enhanced cooperation, which can be established by separate member states within the framework of the treaty. So treaty allows enhanced cooperation. So what do you think from your perspective? Which way generally European Union, which direction generally European Union has to take? It has to promote enhanced cooperation between member states, different member states, which actually now exist already about some questions. It has to promote multi-speed or two-speed Europe inside European Union, or it has to really launch a big talk about re-establish European Union as a more coherent organization with a constitution.
In reality, Mikhailo, we have a multi-speed Europe, but we have a very slow speed Europe, and we need a full speed Europe. That's what we need, yeah? We need to integrate much faster, and we need to be more united. It's obviously in some sectors and in some aspects, it can be, for example, that some countries go ahead and the others come a bit slower because they don't want or they cannot. But the main thing that we need more unity must be clear. So where we, for example, need more unity, it comes to the currency. Everybody should have the euro. There is no reason why not to have the euro. Poland, Romania, Czech Republic, Hungary, and also the countries which are not in the EU at the moment. Even Ukraine, it's much better to have the common currency than to have constant decline currency. We must be more solidarity in many other sectors like energy. Russia is one state selling the energy to us. We must be one state buying the energy. Then we can defend each other and we can negotiate good prices because we are united. So we have, for example, Schengen. That means the free movement. We must, of course, include the Western Balkans and Romania, Bulgaria, because we are not the union of the rich racists of the West with white faces, but we are the Europe. So everybody must be together, like also the poorer people in, let's say, Alabama can travel freely in all the United States of America, obviously. And why not the Kosovo Albanians or the Romanians, This is something which I cannot understand in many aspects, that we wait so long for Schengen enlargement for Romania, for example, Eurozone enlargement for Romania, or the question now is resolved with the OECD enlargement. But we need in all aspects to be more united, but also when some countries don't want something, for example, we have to respect it. If the Danish don't want to be in, let's say, the Eurozone, okay, we can respect that, but we should also not somehow say, that's good, because there's nothing wrong in the Euro, there's nothing wrong in NATO, there's nothing wrong in the EU. It's something wrong with the countries which are not in NATO, because the Austrians, they work with Russia, the Maltese don't care for the solidarity, and so on and so on. It's them, for example, the Norwegians who don't, and the Swiss who don't want so many foreigners because they are so super rich. It's these countries who are wrong. It's not the countries inside the EU which are wrong. And that must be very clear, that the unity is so important, especially when we see now the crisis economically, when we see the strategic challenge of Russia. Then of course the unity is absolutely the only logical, intellectual, understandable answer to such a kind of a challenge. And we have always done it in the past, and we shouldn't, by some xenophobia or kind of semi-racism, say, okay, but these people are a bit different. We are all Europeans. It's so logical. We have now, for example, because I know the economic arguments very well, the Germans are always saying it's very expensive to take Kosovo or Ukraine in the European Union. This was now for 10 years since we took Croatia in the EU, 2013, it was the argument the Germans say, and the Austrians as well, it's very expensive. So how much does it cost enlargement? Maybe let's say 10 billion euros a year. How much is the war in Ukraine costing now? Alone this year, the destruction is 500 billion, only the destruction. And I'm not talking about the 50 billion the Americans are sending and the whatever, 25 the Europeans, and the cost of the war when it comes to inflation, energy costs, agriculture costs, and the global crisis we have now economically. It's 1 trillion, maybe it has reached already. And the cost of a normal enlargement would have been maybe 10 billion, let's say, even with Ukraine, maybe 20 billion. But 1 trillion on the other side, 50 times more is the cost of military confrontation.
Yeah.
Mr. Feckinger, yeah, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Charpentier. Mr. Charpentier, obviously, when we're talking about European Union, or let's say United States of Europe, we definitely have to rely on an example of how the integration developed among American states. Let's say from Articles of Confederation back in the end of 18th century till the creation and signing of the Constitutional Treaty of 1887. Yeah. So we know that there are different legislations, some local legislation, state legislation in the United States. There are, you know, all 51 states of United States, they have different origins. Yeah. Some of them was private states, some of them were crown states, etc., etc. So, and still there are some differences among member states of the United States of America. So how actually, or what do you think, what helped American states to overcome all obstacles in order to keep this alliance, in order to keep this balance, to maintain the big and powerful connection in the form of United States of America? I think these lessons can be very valuable to our discussion and generally to the European Union integration.
Well, let me talk about culture, because we've been talking a lot about xenophobia, right? And in America, each state does have its own unique culture, right? I'm from New England, and we're very close to New York, but geographically, but culturally, we're very different from New Yorkers, right? We're very different from a lot of southern states, but there's an American culture, and it's something. It's almost beyond culture. It's more of a state of mind, and it's just there are just common things that unite us as Americans. And I think that when, I'm not going to use the word if, when Ukraine joins the EU, it will be the same thing. There's no way that Ukrainian culture is going to overwhelm the EU and just change its culture. That's not going to happen. Even if you integrate a lot of Eastern European countries, that's not going to happen, because eventually Ukraine is just going to I believe Ukraine should hold on to a lot of its traditional values, but it also needs to, and it will, when it joins the EU, that it needs to adopt a lot of the Western European values in the EU. And I think it'll come naturally. I don't think that it'll be something that they really have to work at. Again, you know, I'm a New Englander. I'm very proud of our New England heritage. We have different foods. We have different ways of doing things. Even our weather is unique, right? Our 4 seasons, and we do have a certain way of doing things that's slightly different from other Americans. But ultimately, we do things the American way. We're very proud to be American. And I know Ukrainians are very proud to be Ukrainian, and Ukrainians will be very proud to be part of the European the Union and the European community. And I'm certain that they'll be able to acclimate very quickly to that culture.
Mr. Pecklinger,
I believe that Ukraine already does share a lot of
Michael just
Western
wants
European
to
values.
Aaron, because to Aaron, it's very interesting point. When you looked at the United States of America, they started with 13 states. 13 states have created the Union, and now there are 50 member states of the American Union. And we started with 6 states, and now we are going 27, and then we will be 37. It's a natural thing because it's an attractive mechanism of a federal project. And it took a long time for 50 member states of America, because I remember Oklahoma and Texas and Montana. It was not started like this. It took a long time, and it was always a very big decision when taking in the new countries. Who will they vote for? Because there was a big debate in America, in that case about slavery, but about other issues. And it's also in Europe a big debate, because the question is always, who will Ukraine vote for? Will it vote with Poland? Will it vote with Germany, with France? Yeah? And we are in this debate, obviously. And the French are very not in favor of letting new countries in the European Union, because they think that all the new countries which are coming now, like Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Kosovo, they will more or less vote more with the Germans and with the Polish, and not with the French. And that's one of the reasons why we have this delay in enlargement.
Kosovo,
I mean, they'll also, no, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Kosovo will vote together with Germany because we are together. But France decides its own will.
Yeah, the French are blocking the countries, and then later they are angry that the countries don't like them inside.
Well,
Mr. Pecklinger,
please.
Yeah, please.
What is the question?
Yeah, Mr. Pecklinger, actually, I wanted to ask you a provocative question. You know that, obviously, European Union played a very wise game in terms of Serbia and Kosovo. We know that there used to be, obviously, historically very tense relations between Kosovo and Serbia. And there is only one way how Serbia and Kosovo can live, let's say, live together with a friendship, etc., being part of European Union. We know this. And both Serbia and Kosovo, they have a very strong impetus for their development and for the peace, let's say, regulations, the relations inside the European Union, or if they want to get to European Union. So my question, provocative question, will be to you. So now we have, let's say, dictator Vladimir Putin, who is in charge of Russia, who converted Russia into the chauvinist dictatorship, and he suppressed freedom of speech, and he brainwashed Russians' brains, you know, during the last 20 years. But there was a time in the history of Russia, after the collapse of Soviet Union, when there was a minister, Kozyrev, who is actually now in the United States, lives in the United States. There was Mr. Haidar, other politicians in Russia who actually wanted to integrate Russia inside the European Union and inside NATO. And I'm sure that if Russia in the 90s would be, let's say, closer to European Union and NATO, it would allow to keep the democracy in Russia and not to allow former KGB officers to take power in Russia and now to represent a threat to the whole Europe and also invading Ukraine. So do you think that it was actually a failure of NATO and a failure of European Union at that time, Western European states at that time, not to keep Russia closer in order to help itself to transform and not to allow dictatorship to emerge in this country, you know?
Thanks a lot. First to the question about Serbia and Kosovo and Bosnia. They are complicated, but the answer to all the crises we have is the European Union. They will be united in the EU, in NATO, in the euro as a currency, and then the people, no matter what the borders are, they will live together in one European Union, but as separate member states. And of course, this will be the outcome. The way might be a little bit more complicated, but that will be the outcome. And we will have a member state Kosovo, a member state Serbia, a member state Bosnia. They will have the same currency, and they will be also defended in the same defense union, alliance, NATO, and that will be the result. And we will take some time to negotiate. It is always too complicated. That's unfortunately and slow, but the result will be peace in NATO, EU, and the euro. When it comes to Russia, we have done a lot for Russia in 91, in 92, in 93, 4. But imagine, you know, it was very complicated. When Russia, Soviet Union fell apart, yeah, it was basically civil war in Russia. Remember, 93, the parliament storm. It was 94, the war in Chechnya. It is very, very complicated crisis country. And we have done a lot of money. The Americans spent a lot of money, many billions of euros and dollars to support the Russian transition. And we also supported Yeltsin as much as it's possible with this NATO Russia Council to integrate them in the defense and all these issues, financially, politically, to take Yeltsin very seriously. But unfortunately, the KGB, and they have hosted this kind of coup in 98 with the ruble crisis in August, where the economy fell. They stole a lot of money from the IMF with the Sfimaco scandal. And then the whole kind of counter reaction of the KGB came, and they plotted to have the coup in Russia, basically to put Putin to power with all the apartment bombings and with the Chechen war, with the second one. And also they were from day one trying to get the control of Ukraine again. Remember Mr. Chernobyl and all this the crises around him. So we are in that situation. And you know, you can always say we should have done more for Russia in 1990s, yeah. But we have done a lot. But sadly, we lost this civil war inside of Russia between the liberal reformers like Nemtsov and Haidar on the one side, yeah. There are Parachniks around Yeltsin and Chernomyrdins in the middle, and the extremists from the KGB side. And they are the most brutal, they were the best trained, and they had the most to lose. And they have plotted basically for the conquest of Russia, and we lost it. And can we do something better the next time after Putin's fall? I think, yes, we have to learn. We have to de-recognize already Russia, and there's new republics like Chechnya or others. We have to recognize them from day one and allow their freedom, because Russia is, as we see it now very clearly, it's bent for conquest. It's a brutal colonial power, and they are now trying, of course, with military force to impose themselves on east of Ukraine. And this is something they will do again and again. It will not stop. And of course, we need to have a better strategy the next time, but we did a lot already. That I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fettinger. I would like to ask a short question to Mr. Charpentier. Mr. Charpentier, I remember, well, actually, I don't remember because I was too young at the time, but in the beginning of August 1991, President Bush came to Ukraine and he gave a speech in Ukrainian parliament, Verkhovna Rada. His speech was called the Chicken Kyiv speech because Mr. President Bush the senior, he urged Ukraine not to leave Soviet Union. Why? Because actually Western world, especially United States, they were afraid of the Soviet Union collapse. And actually that's why when Boris Yeltsin came to the United States in the 1989, Bush wanted to escape from the meeting with Mr. Yeltsin. And finally he devoted 5-10 minutes to him, and that's all. Because actually United States, they were in strong favor of keeping Soviet Union going. And actually this is the truth, because now Russian propaganda say an opposite, blaming Westerns for the collapse of Soviet Union. It's absolutely false, because Western world wanted to keep Soviet Union because of the nuclear weapon, etc., etc. So my question will be the following. We see now how Westerns try to, let's say, have talks with Mr. Putin and try to save his face. Why they're doing this? Maybe we are witnesses of another example how Westerns are afraid of collapsing Russia, and they want to, let's say, save Russia from the defeat which Ukrainian army can cause to Russia with enough support from Europe. Maybe this is the reason they don't want Russia to be defeated and to collapse.
I think that America does want to see Russia collapse and lose, and I think that the situation's a lot different from from that time when Bush visited Ukraine. And that's all I can really answer on that. But I definitely don't think that I believe that we want Ukraine to succeed and to win this war and to eventually join the EU. That's what the reason I spoke of the war before, because I think that Ukraine needs to win this war before any negotiations can start. And again, I think America, we've always just supported whatever Ukrainians want. Even with the sovereignty of your land, keeping your land, and I just think that victory for Ukraine will put not only Ukraine in a better position for negotiation, but it'll also help the EU and North America. I think that the EU is really, especially France, is really looking at their own interests, and it's really hard to tell what. I think that they don't really respect Ukraine's sovereignty the way that we do.
Mr. May, also it's very interesting debate, because you're absolutely right. George Bush came to Kiev and he made the Chicken Kiev speech. Yeah? And they had the same policy also for Yugoslavia. They were always in favor of keeping Yugoslavia united, and it's also for the Soviet Union to be united. That was the policy of America in the 1990s. Yeah? And only when they saw how brutal then Milosevic was in Bosnia and in Croatia, they have then started to help the countries and to recognize independence. For Macedonia, it took until 1994 only that the Americans have recognized Macedonia. And for Kosovo, for example, it took another war in 1999 to really recognize then the independence in 2008. And the thing is, that's the one thing we should learn from the past. And also when the next crisis of Russia comes, we should be much faster in recognizing the new countries and to help them to get free. Because one of the crises which we have in Ukraine now, the underlying, and I'm very pro-American, not Aaron, don't get me wrong, but one of the problems is that after the recognition of Ukraine, there was not so much support for independent Ukraine, because everybody in America and Europe, many people were thinking, you know, we have recognized it, but it's okay if they stay in the Russian orbit, in more or less. Yeah, that was the policy. And there was not the same policy like for Poland or for Estonia or for Romania to really allow Ukraine fully into EU and NATO, because it could have been the same destiny of Ukraine to be like Poland or Romania or Estonia or Lithuania or Latvia. But no, because we are recognized, but we didn't really help you. We didn't allow you to fully be in the EU and NATO. And now we pay with this terrible war, and you pay most of it because your people are dying. So next time when the situation comes, again, recognize and support much faster and give them a real opportunity to join the free world fully, and not let them into some kind of Russian orbit in order to appease Putin or whatever, Yeltsin, because it's a big mistake and it's very costly in the long run.
But I think Americans are really disgusted with the war crimes, and they really, the American people would never tolerate a government that you know, that whose policies don't support overthrowing Putin, even if it means the collapse of Russia.
It's not anybody's else decision if Russia will collapse or not. It is when it collapses, we have to deal with it, but we should not support the unity of Russia as a war aim or as a kind of strategic objective. Yeah, if they fall apart, so it will be. Let's work with the constituent parts as new republics, recognize them, and build a better, freer world without the control of the Kremlin, of the poor provinces of Buryatia or Chechnya. These are good people there, and they are living for many centuries under terrible dictatorship of Kremlin. And I feel very sorry for them, and they have to serve as well human rights, democracy, freedom, and we should support them.
Well, I share the point that you threw in, Mr. Feckinger, regarding the situation with Ukraine at the beginning of the 90s. It's true, because Ukraine was a terra incognita for the Western world, and it's true. Yes. Even though Ukraine actually, together with Belarus, they had votes along with Soviet Union in United Nations. So basically, Soviet Union had 3 votes for Soviet Union, for Ukraine, and for Belarus. But still, Ukraine was terra incognita, and that's why actually Westerns put a great pressure on Ukraine to to give up our nuclear weapons to Russia. Maybe if still we maintained our nuclear potential, then obviously Russia wouldn't invade Crimea and wouldn't launch this terrible war. So this is again was a great failure of the West.
It's not only the nuclear weapons, that's the most important, but it's also, it took a long time for the embassies to open in Kiev. A lot of international companies, international organizations were continuing to sit in Moscow and just come and visit on the day, 1 day, 2 days, for a week for Kiev, just like it would be continued somehow to be governed from Moscow. And that was a big mistake. We didn't do that for Poland. We didn't do that for Bucharest, for Romania. We had embassies, we had international organizations, international companies were all going to Bucharest and Warsaw. And we waited too long to take Kiev seriously. And that was a big mistake.
Mr. Feckinger, I would like to ask Mr. Ahmed a question, and I know that Ahmed wants to contribute to the previous question, but I also would like to ask Mr. Ahmed, let's say, the perception of the situation between Ukraine and Russia in Kosovo, especially bearing in mind then that there was a huge influence which Russia exercised on Serbia's politicians. And we know that still there is a strong sympathy amongst Serbians towards Russia, even though Russia launched a brutal aggression against Ukraine and actually created a big massacre in Bucha in Kiev region, where thousands of people were killed by Russian soldiers. So please, Ahmed.
In Kosovo, Albanians do not support Russian aggression, but Serbians do support That's the current situation in Kosovo. So our current political party doesn't support Russian aggression. So we have invited some journalists from Ukraine to come to our country. So we want to recognize Ukraine as a country, and also Ukraine to recognize us as a country.
So actually very interestingly that the Kosovo government has invited 20 journalists. I met some of them when I was in Pristina now, in order to show solidarity and also to support them financially and to really do what can be done from the side of Kosovo to support Ukraine. As well, Albania, for example, has made a street in Tirana, the so-called Free Ukraine Street, directly in front of the Russian embassy and the Ukraine embassy.
Yes.
That was very good. And also Macedonia is in full solidarity, and all three allies, they are all in NATO, and also Montenegro and also Kosovo, they have joined the EU sanctions against Russia fully, 100%.
Yeah.
It is very important solidarity, I think.
Yeah.
Just in Serbia, unfortunately, they have not joined the sanctions. They have kept the airspace open for Russia, and they have many flights now to Moscow, so they undermine the sanctions. And also they have just today, they have signed a new gas deal for cheap gas for Russia to come to Serbia. It's a big problem, and they have not joined any of the sanctions against Russia. And it's very, very sad situation. And I call that Ukraine should also be a bit tougher to Serbia, because they are continuing to support Russia despite all the atrocities and the terror crime. And that's very, very unfortunate. But there are also good Serbian people who are standing with Ukraine, and they are also in the street protesting against the war. But unfortunately, the government does not support them, and the Serbian government, unfortunately, is very pro-Putin, and that's something real problematic. I'm very sorry for that.
I was in Belgrade in 2016. I had to send some books to a company in Belgrade, and actually the place was near the former Chinese embassy when that was struck from NATO. And the same place. So I talked to them that I'm from Kosovo.
Yes, and it's also very important to see if Ukraine or Moldova, Georgia, and Bosnia can recognize the Republic of Kosovo. That would be also perfect, because it is the product also of Western intervention and of our policy making. So we are very proud about having the Republic of Kosovo, our friends, to be liberated and free now, and now in solidarity with Ukraine. So that would be really very good if that would be also possible in the future, and also to show the Western world that Ukraine is fully with the Western world, also on the foreign policy on the Balkans.
Yes. Actually, we need to have a diplomatic relationship to all the countries before joining to EU. So when we join to EU, we do not have any problems in between.
That's very important, to have an alliance of all the countries together. And that's something which Ukraine should do, because Ukraine is the biggest and most important country with 40 million people, with a 1 million army strong, and they are the shield of Europe. But it's also necessary that politically Ukraine takes the leadership and takes all the smaller countries of in the Balkans and Georgia and Moldova together into the European Union, because the European Union will not open only for Ukraine, but all countries together. That's 60 million people, Ukraine the most important, and then we can build a coalition for opening Europe, and that would be perfect.
And I support also building of underground tunnels to import grain and other products through underground tunnels to Europe. So
it's also very important, the agriculture situation, because now it would be very good to transport the agriculture goods from Ukraine to Moldova, to Ukraine, to the Balkans. There's many opportunities, and that would be good business. And it's also very important to build the highways and the railways, and also to bring Ukraine in the customs union of EU, to make it easier to cross the borders, because there's a lot of lines to wait for too long, a lot of problems at the borders, and it's much better to be inside the EU customs union for Ukraine.
We can start with a system like CEFTA in Balkan, for Ukraine and Georgia and other countries, and then they can join to European custom.
Ahmed is saying that Ukraine should join, and he wants to invite Ukraine to join the Central European Free Trade Agreement, which is a wonderful initiative, which Dr. Buse created. Actually, it was in '92 already. Poland was part of it, and that would be the free market to join the European market in Southeastern Europe together with the allies, and that would be really good for Ukraine.
Kosovo is in CEFTA, so joining Ukraine and Georgia and others also will recognize our documents, because when we buy things from Ukraine or we send something to Ukraine, they should recognize our documents too.
Yeah, it would be a good idea. Besides, there is no contradiction between, let's say, free trade regime between Ukraine and European Union and free trade regime with the Balkan countries. And actually, I think these both agreements, they complement each other. At the end of the day, we all will be the part of customs union and generally European Union internal market. I would like to ask, I think because we are running out of time, maybe it will be one of the last questions. I would like to ask Mr. Tassilo. Mr. Tassilo, so now the situation is really very dangerous because, to be honest with you, I didn't believe that Russia can launch a large-scale invasion into Ukraine. I thought that Mr. Putin simply is bluffing, and now after he launched this aggression, I'm not sure that he won't try to use a nuclear weapon. You know, and now it's very important to let's say to convert European Union as convert European Union to the one strong fist, which can, let's say, hook Russia and not allow Russia to use nuclear weapon, etc. So, what do you think the European Union should do in order to become more coherent and to support Ukraine in the face of Russian invasion?
Can you repeat your question, the first part, please? I didn't hear because
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. That's okay. I'm also sitting in a coffee house, so that's okay. Being coffee house actually helps to boost the discussion about the future of European integration. Mr. Tassilo, I would like to repeat the question. So now we're not sure that Russia, after it launched a large-scale invasion into Ukraine, that Russia wouldn't use a nuclear weapon, especially if Ukrainian army, let's say, will fight back territories which Russia already occupied, because for Putin, this war is very dangerous. If Ukraine wins, then he definitely lose the power, or maybe he will not only lose the political power, but also physical life, who knows? So in this situation, he might use the nuclear weapon. So what, from your perspective, European Union or your member states of European Union have to do in order to convert European Union into strong fist, which can hook Mr. Putin and not to allow him to use nuclear weapon during this conflict?
Okay, that's a very difficult question, but I think, yeah.
Well, Mr. Tassilo, sorry for interrupting you, but if we want both to continue to sit in coffee houses, we have to find an answer to this question, really. It's the matter of our life and the future of the coffee. Yeah.
Sure. Now, I think we have to build really a strong Europe. That's really the answer. But I know that's maybe abstract at the moment. But I know that also the fear of Europe is that Putin gets out of control. It's maybe more the German Angst, yeah, and maybe the Austrian too. And I don't know if I can really respond to your question.
Allow me to answer this question because it's a very good one. And Tassilo, don't worry, there will be no nuclear war. There will be no nuclear war. Because why? Our nuclear weapons work much better than the Russian ones. Yeah, we have much more and much powerful technology in America, and we will not allow this. Yeah, and nuclear war is always based on mutually destruction of both sides. Yeah. And America is very serious protector of freedom of Europe, and there will be no nuclear war. It's just, the threat of nuclear war, because people are no longer used to understand it, because for 30 years we didn't discuss this so much. Yeah? This is like making everybody afraid. And so the Russians very irresponsibly and recklessly try to provoke this nuclear kind of threat just to make everybody here a little bit, nervous. Yeah? I understand that, but in logical terms, in real military terms, in strategic terms, you can rely on the American nuclear deterrent to work much better than the Russian one, and nobody in Russia will do any kind of nuclear escalation, be 100% sure about it, and we should not even then somehow make everybody excited about this prospect, yeah? Because nuclear weapons are only defensive weapons of territory in the last resort of a kind of aggression against Russia. And nobody is attacking Russia here, please. The only one who is attacking somebody is the Russians attacking Ukraine, and they shouldn't be there. So there is no kind of theoretical threat even of nuclear escalation. And it's just the wrong debate to even discuss it. And Putin is just exaggerating his own potential and making everybody excited with fear. And we shouldn't fall into this trap at all, because, as I have said, it will never happen.
But my question is maybe to you or to all of you, if it's true that Putin is on a religious mission at the moment, or it's just his own propaganda that he will, for me, is a gangster. Yeah, Putin is a gangster, but he will just stay in power with the power of Russian mission, and then that's why this war is so dangerous. It's very dangerous. That he won't stop until he wants to build Novorossiya. And at the moment, it's only a possibility now to go on this war, because if it will stop it, that will be the end of his progression, because then Ukraine will have enough weapons. So that's clear. And now he's trying what is possible to get.
Mr. Tassilo, I support your thought. Mr. Fechtinger, I would like to stress that I did not believe that Mr. Putin is going to launch this full-scale war. Actually, I was very critical about Western medias who stressed that Putin is going to launch this large-scale war, because large-scale wars, they were very typical in 19th century, even in the beginning of 20th century, but not in the 21st century. And now, after he did this, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that in case he wouldn't have another option. For instance, if he will understand that Russia is losing this war, and again, the loss in the war will mean for him the self-destruction. So he not only won't remain in the power, it means that he will have the same destiny like Mr. Ceausescu in Romania. And in this situation, he can try to, let's say, use this last resort, as you say, and use a nuclear weapon. You know, Putin now is really on the very religious road, so it means that he is obsessed with his thoughts.
Look, it's all possible, but in principle, he is an atheistic KGB agent trained and sworn to defend the Soviet Union until the age of 35. Yeah, and he was like that. And I don't think that he has discovered God or Christianity. Yeah, because he is an evil actor, and certainly he is not a very religious person. Yeah, this is just for the media, some kind of narrative. And it's certainly not that he has somehow found Christianity, because Christianity is a religion of peace and love and humanity. And what he is now showing, that he has unleashed this evil war, is already a proof that he is not in that Christianity thinking, because there's not just a big difference between Eastern and Western Christianity, and we all believe in the same God. And certainly Mr. Putin doesn't believe in the Lord. Let's be honest. Yeah? And he is just building a narrative of identity for the Russians to believe they have some power. Additionally, what I want to say, it's not clear that the end of the war will be the end of Putin. A dictator can defend himself for many years. After the loss of Milosevic war in June 1999, it took more than a year until the 5th of October that he lost the power. And then it took one more year until he was sent to Den Haag. So he will stay in power as long as he probably lives, in most likelihood. The idea that he will fall immediately just because he has a minor defeat in Ukraine, I don't believe that. Yeah. So we have to live somehow with him. He will be ever more extreme against the Russians, which are in many ways also his victims, because he is getting more and more dictatorial. And he will, of course, not win in Ukraine. On the contrary, he will have a defeat, but it will be ending in some kind of stalemate now in the East over time during the year. But then he will be somehow telling his people that he had a success because he can keep a bit more land. And still, at the end of the day, he will then fade out over time, over the next years, because we will not give up the sanctions. It's very clear, we have to understand the decoupling from Russia from the world economy will continue completely. And by 2024, latest by 2026, we will not buy any Russian energy anymore in Europe. And so what should the Russians sell? Russia is bent for complete economic decline, because until they sell it to China, it's absolutely illusionary. For 20 years, they cannot sell so much to China or to India. It's simply technically impossible. And so they will have a big crisis, but it will be the crisis for the next 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it's not immediately that tomorrow or something. And we have to prepare Ukraine for a very long war, because now you have 8 years war. And in reality, this war can easily take 5, 6 years. Maybe longer, because it will be maybe lower intensity war, but there will be not whatever some people believe in August there will be peace, or in September. No, the war will continue for the very long term, and you must be militarily, strategically, fiscally, economically prepared for the long war. And that's the big challenge now.
That's why Ukraine has to sell a lot of agricultural products, so they have money to buy new weapons to defend themselves.
One aspect, it's very true. And it must be fully integrated in Europe, because in order to be successful economically and fiscally, because it will be a long confrontation and a long war with Russia, I think so.
Well, anyway, Mr. Fecklinger, meanwhile, I have received an invitation to join another discussion, which is going to take place in the middle of June, which Vienna Goes Europe is going to organize. So in case Putin will launch nuclear aggression, nuclear offense, we will have an opportunity from our shelters, let's say, to have this conference through Zoom, thanks to Mr. Musk, who invented Starlinks. So everything will be fine, except coffee houses. Coffee houses possibly won't work. So let's buy enough coffee for our next discussion.
Let's be very optimistic. I want to make one statement. First of all, Mikhailo, thanks a lot for your excellent moderation and for your friendship and your many guests. It was really very good. Secondly, please, we need to make a very big event on the 19th of June to make a lot of visibility in America, in Europe, in Ukraine, in Moldova, everywhere. and also when you have some youth activists, European activists, to make it a big Twitter storm, demonstrations to work with all the countries to join the European Union. That's very important. And if you have time, I would propose in the week before, on the 14th of June, to make a new Zoom event, the third one, after the celebration on the 1st of May, which is very important. And then we meet all together and we discuss and we coordinate the event for Ukraine in the EU and for enlarge EU, because that should be the hashtag for all 9 countries to be together in the European Union of 36 countries.
I will write enlarge EU 37.
Very good.
That is much better.
Thank you.
It was very nice to meet you guys. All the best. Slava Ukraine. And for
Thank you.
Героям слава.
Thank you.
Slava Ukraine.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. All the best. Bye.